Wichita County Commissioner's Court. Federal police seasons to give our indications.
Our good and gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we give thanks, Lord, give thanks for the season in which we look back on your sacrifice for us. Lord, we pray that we'd all be remembrance of that. So we pray you would guide us, and direct us in wisdom, and integrity, and all strength to do the work of Wichita County, Lord. That we would do those things you would have us to do, through you. Lord, I pray for first responders, as they run into danger, Lord, that you would protect them. Lord, we pray for our military, also, Lord, keep them safe and well. We pray for our country, Lord, that calm heads would prevail. We would get back to a government that would get along, do the right thing and do the right things for the people and by the people, Lord. Lord, we just ask you to watch over us, bless and guide us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to these. One state, one God, under God, and indivisible.
Everyone, you may be seated. Do a number of presentations. First up, I'd like to invite the Dean up front, as well as Linda. So Victoria this month, County Employee of the Month for March 2023.
Yay.
So she serves over in our indigent home care office. What do you do?
Individuals be able to kind of get medical or like prescriptions and I also know Spanish.
Oh, okay. Good. Oh, okay. Glenda, would you like to tell them something?
When I came into the business, I should say, a little over a year ago, about 3 months before immediately recognized her potential. So I asked Mark Hayes for her position, and she is not disappointed. She's very eager, smart, and I hope she goes a long way to the county because she's a value to an asset to the county.
So Glenda, you just made a job.
Came on board, we were pretty much a turmoil over there because we didn't have two people. So Victoria stepped right up. Our receptionist just took over. In not good circumstances, has made a tremendous hand for us over there. Always pleasant, always with a smile on a friendly face, and plus working with our Spanish-speaking clients is definite plus. So we definitely appreciate what you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything else to anyone?
This is my first time in Commissioner's Court. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the Commissioner's Court, we want to acknowledge that you're the Employee of the Month for March 2023, and thank you for the outstanding job you're doing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Sorry, Elizabeth.
Suitable timing.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you all
Still
so
put the
much.
glass in it.
Now I'd like to invite Aniel Ramirez up. So Aniel has been with the county now for 15 years.
Wow.
And so this morning we wanted to acknowledge that milestone and then also present a certificate of appreciation to you for such an outstanding job and dedicated service for so long. So I'll give you this certificate, and then we also have a small token of our appreciation to also give to you as well.
Thank you.
Do you want to take the opportunity to say anything to anyone?
No. No, thank you. It's been a lot of fun working here for the county. A lot of new people come in and out. I've got some people that have been here a while that I'm still, working with, but it's been a pleasure to work with the county. I really enjoy my job.
Well, good. It's, doing these years of service things are interesting for me because as far as I'm concerned, everyone's worked here 90 days. That's all I have to do. Thank you again. I just want to brag on Aniela a little bit. In the lead up to taking office, I went around and was visiting with all the different departments to try to learn a little bit about what y'all do, and y'all was so gracious. I think if I'd let her, she would have fed me. And just explaining the job, and she spent an hour with me just answering questions. I really appreciated that, and thank you so much for the long work.
Judge, I want to say that to my experience with Danielle and with Mitzi before Danielle and along with Mitzi, Danielle worked tirelessly beside, but I mean, they've got their nose down and they work, and I appreciate that, and I've always appreciated the hard work coming out of your office. I know the judge does as well, so that's fantastic. Thank you for being that way.
Thank you.
In recognition and thanks and gratitude for your dedicated service, we decided we'd remodel your office. We washed it down really good last week.
And she especially liked working with me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. And then this time, I'm going to present a Safety Achievement Award from the Texas Association of Counties Risk Management Pool. So I think I'll ask Ernesto, Rita, and Brent to all, Brett, sorry, to all come up. Y'all do this a lot around the state, I imagine, so I think I'll just turn it over to you and then we'll do the award presentation.
Not my first time in Commissioner's Court. Congratulations to the winners in the recognition.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the future. Again, my name is Ernesto Galindo. I'm the risk management consultant for this area. I'm here with Rita Five, HR consultant, and Mr. Brent Anderson, who's property program supervisor. I always get his title wrong. And I call him my secret weapon. That's what I call him. So, but we're here to acknowledge and present a Safety Achievement Award. Every year, the pool takes the time to recognize those counties that have done a tremendous amount of work in protecting the health and safety of your most valuable assets, which is your employees. And you guys have done that continuously for several years, and you're being recognized for 2022, and we're looking forward to continue working with you in 2023. I know Mr. Jack Coffey, who was our previous risk control consultant for this area, he retired, and he took a lot of pride in helping Wichita County, so hopefully we'll bring somebody on board that can help us with that. But it's been a privilege working with you guys, and we want to remind you that we're here. Anything we can help you. We hope that the safety training that we have done for you guys will continue. We have other consultants, I believe Mr. Joe Chepchek has come down to do some training for you guys, so we can continue to do training for you, and looking forward to working with you in 2023. Rita?
Well, it's very much, this is an honor for your safety award. So I hope that you'll display it in a place where everybody can see it. It's a big thing, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Brett really wants to talk.
I think I'll talk a little more later on, if that's okay.
Where's the banner?
It's right
Oh,
there.
yes.
You did it backwards.
Do we want to take a picture at the end of the day, or you want to do it
Well,
now?
do it now.
You want to do it now?
Yeah, let's go and do it now. That way some folks who may not
Perfect.
want to stay here for the next however long they
Okay.
can be here.
If y'all want to stand behind, and we can uphold this in front of you guys.
Yeah, I think we're going to be behind the desk with the banner.
Would that be okay? Okay, cool.
Let's get you Senator Ernesto. Come over.
Yes, I'll go that way.
Yep.
And we'll go to the right.
One more foot.
Jeff, for
We
the
can
right.
move that black.
Char folks.
That podium.
There we go.
So Ernesto, I ran into Cheryl that morning early, and she said, "Hey, we won an award." And I said, "What did we win?" And she said, "You know that Tanya." She said.
Is it level?
It's close.
It's pretty close.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Manual Zoom?
Yeah. Trying to make sure I don't have that in it. I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you. And we would like to especially call out the HR office. Tommy, do you want to say anything for your folks? And
Just that I have a great group. They have worked well together. Two of them are fairly new, but have caught on, jumped in. We're cross-training everybody so that people will know, that we're pick up slack with some of these areas. But our TAC people have been awesome. Anytime I call them for anything, in fact, coming down here for the presentation is a long haul from Austin, and then they go back to work, but we appreciate them.
yeah, good. Well, thank
Very
you.
good.
And let's give our HR folks a round of applause.
Ernesto, I had a question, we got an award for Wichita Wilbarger 911. How are they an eligible entity within the Texas Association of Counties?
Yes, they are. That award is not a plaque like this. It's just a recognition.
Right.
That's what we do. I guess. Absolutely.
So they're participants?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they can definitely participate.
Are they members of TAC, or are they, okay?
Yes, because you guys were listed in the,
Yeah.
in the program.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we were affiliates or how exactly we work.
Which, by the way, I want to give you kudos. You guys had a good group of people attending our conference. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Oh, we did.
And we look forward to see you guys. We're already working on next year, so we look forward to see you guys there.
Timely, it was timely training.
Yeah. You may find yourself in, just FYI.
We'll be the feature next year.
That's right, I'm already volunteering.
It's mental health awareness.
So you might want to leave that March month open just in case.
Yeah, already volunteered.
Thank you very much.
All right. Are there any other presentations? Today's the day to do them. Okay. All right. Thank you to everyone who's here, and understand if you need to leave and go do other things. We totally understand that. At this time, it is 10:13. We will open up for public comment. As a reminder, we ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. Anything that comment occurs on, action cannot be taken by the court.
In the spirit of getting somebody back to work, like you just said, I need to introduce somebody to the court. Alan has, thanks to TAC, come to us to help us mitigate our disaster. He's our large claims specialist clerk that'll help us walk through all the pitfalls and things that we go through in the early stages of our flood damage. So, Alan?
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, like you said, I'm a building construction consultant. I'm here right now just to kind of put eyes on what's going on with the mitigation process, watching what's going on, documenting, keeping track of it. End result, what I'll end up doing probably is an analysis for when they start submitting invoices to get people paid, just making sure that it's on a responsible level, that we don't get ahead of ourselves or let the bills run up too high. And I'm not sure that we're going to do the build back yet. I don't know that we have confirmation that we are doing the build back, but if so, then I'll put together a scope for scope and cost to what it's going to cost to put everything back together for you also.
Tell us about your company.
Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H. I'm with Hallowell Construction Services out of we're a subsidiary of Hallowell Engineering.
And the minute you got on site, we had calm. And everything started working like it should, like clockwork, and thank you.
Absolutely.
there's a lot of things you just don't know unless you've been through one of these, and you started, this needs to go here, this needs to go there, and boy, everything, within minutes, we had everything under control.
Great.
And Alan, how do we pay you?
You don't pay me, the insurance company will pay for my service.
We have a volunteer.
Probably checkbook. Gotcha. Well, Alan, welcome to Wichita County. Wish you were here under better circumstances. But thank you for the work you're going to do. And sounds like you've already gotten off to a great start.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank
you.
Thanks for coming
Thank
up.
you.
I appreciate you coming up.
Judge, just a special thanks to the HR department this last week. They wrapped up, we do those refunds on some of the medical expenses, a program that we took on, and they make that so simple and so seamless. And thanks to the work, reaching out, making sure that's done in a timely manner. We appreciate your work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Spread that congratulations
I
around
will,
your
to
office.
Sonia.
You got a
And
good
Kathy.
team.
Because we forget, we appreciate y'all the time.
Well, I think people are learning because it went a lot
Yeah.
faster this year.
That's
Did
made
we
it so
get
simple.
did most people collect?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's been a good program, and they sure make it easy, so. Am I the only one with sinuses this morning?
You're the lucky winner.
I just
Man.
said that.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to make public comment? All right, it is 10:17. Public comment is closed. That means we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Judge, I had a couple of things here on the consent agenda. First off, I wanted to tell Patrick and Will, I told Will, but you get the ACE #1 award for finding 2 Tahoes for $96,000. That's because in this pursuit of pickups in the last month that we've been through, I see them all, and man, and we were really anticipating more cost there. You did so that's
And
great.
just a note to that, I think we were buying that same thing, 2 years ago for about 55,000?
Yeah.
That tells you what we're up against right
That's
now,
right.
trying to keep business going and move forward. I mean, that makes it very difficult.
I want to mention on item 9 that we are in the process of trying to send our loader to Ritchie Brothers for auction. We have now, again this month, every month I'm running into a $6,000 to $8,000 repair bill. I can't keep it running. It's a just barely 6-year-old loader, and it's, well, I'm just not as fond of it anymore as once was. So we're going to
Imagine that.
rent for a little bit as we try to find out, maybe just have to through the process of chip sealing, and then, but I know that I'm up against 6 months to a year to get a new loader in here, but we're going to try to rent for a while. And then finally, Judge, on item 11, could we pull that down and maybe, with respect for Bob, place it under item 2 and visit with it, or place it wherever you want to place
Sure.
it? But just let us talk through it with Cheryl.
Okay. We should certainly do that.
Another question? Motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right, do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay. The motion has been made by Commissioner Fincannon, seconded by Commissioner Beecham to approve the consent agenda with item number 11 pulled down to general business. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. All right, that leaves us to general business. Item number 1. This is a public hearing to discuss, consider, and take action on the amount of mandatory payments that the Wichita County Commissioners Court intends to require from local hospitals in fiscal year 2023. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Pert up. If you want to say anything or just answer questions, we can.
Sure. Either way works fine. First, I'd like to say good morning, Judge Johnson, members of the court. I appreciate being back here again. I believe this is the fourth or fifth time we've come before the court to reference some information to you. My name is Bob Pert. I'm Chief Financial Officer, United Regional. Been there almost 18 years. I'd like to first thank everybody for all the historical support that you guys have given us and leadership associated with that. Little quick background on the LPPF program. Wichita County LPPF program, the Local Provider Participation Fund. Always have lots of acronyms out there. Started in 2019 by the approval of our state legislator with approval of and support of Representative Frank. He's also supporting the renewal, which will take place in 24 because it's expiring. Some of the brief mechanics associated with the program are as follows. Basically, it allows private Texas hospitals to access federal matching dollars and bring down those dollars to help offset some of the cost of uncompensated care and the shortfalls that we experience ongoing from Medicaid. For our organization, approximately $50 million a year. As you referenced, the county levies a mandatory fee on the local private hospitals. Those fees are collected by the county and then sent to the state and then to the feds, and it comes back kind of in a point of a wheel. Today, we're requesting a 4.63% on net patient revenues for local hospitals, and obviously open to any questions or comments that you guys have, and very much appreciate the support that we've gotten in the past.
What was it last year, Bob?
Actually, we're asking for a little bit less this year because the funds available are down a little bit, so it was actually a little bit higher. Last year, we actually came twice versus once. This year, we're hoping to do it once. This is an ever-evolving program, and we're always trying to stay on the cusp of the new changes to the rules, and it's just a matter of staying very tight with the legislation. So it's going to be a little bit less. So it's a little bit lower than it was last year. I'd say about $2 million.
And do you have a somewhat of familiarity with the overview? Like we collect and pay the state X, and then in return, the recaptured value for hospitals in our area is what?
Right. So sending up approximately 23, I think the number is, the gross amount coming back 48, 47, something like that. So 2 times plus, and that net obviously impacts us, the community, as relates to the offset to those costs I was referencing earlier.
And it's money that 20+ million then that's over and above we would have never gotten had you not implemented such.
Absolutely. And again, this is not unique to our county. It's throughout the state. In fact, when you put it on a global perspective of the whole state, this pulls about $3 billion into the state. We're just requesting to try to get our component to help our community.
Wow. Just kind of for the sake of people that haven't been through this before. So the county actually levies a tax to the hospital, and we take that levy back, pass it through Wichita County. It's not a tax to individual taxpayers, it's to the hospitals.
Yeah, it's really a fee.
We turn those fees over to the state, to the federal government, and it returns back twofold?
Yes.
More or less?
Yep.
Simple version?
Yes.
This does not impact patients, individuals at all.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, ours is just going through the motions because the fee is self-imposed basically by the hospitals.
Right.
So they determine what that number should look like in order to capture the most value out there, and that's great.
Absolutely.
It's a weirdly set up thing, but it's going to bring a lot of
Could we find a similar program for our jail? I kind of like that.
You play with the regulations that are available.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, Bob, we appreciate what the job you do, Phyllis does for the hospital. I'm just amazed by the knowledge and professionalism, and I just can't tell you enough how I appreciate that. So it's a pleasure hearing from you again and taking action to make this program work. So
It's our honor and privilege to serve this community. Phyllis from Bridgeport, I'm from Burke Burnett. It's nice to be able to take care of the people that took care of us in our time. So we appreciate all of you.
Do you have any other questions?
I'll make the motion. There's better.
Well, we'll see. I guess until the legislature ends, y'all are watching that. We may see
For
you
next
again.
year. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, this appears to be an ongoing program until something changes. And we'll keep you posted, obviously.
And Representative Frank's bill would reauthorize y'all for another 5-year period?
Yep. There's the omnibus bill and his, so there's kind of two sitting out there, both in support of renewing, just trying to make sure we're taking advantages of whatever opportunities are out there. So.
Okay.
And on that note, Jim, I forgot to say, and Cheryl gets 20 or 25,000?
We get 20,000.
20,000 set by statute to
Right.
facilitate this program. She bookkeeps it, and we get a report on that
Yes.
funding. So
Yes. And also, I should be remiss to say thank you for the support that you have given us in helping this, the reporting and other requirements that you guys are doing. So thank you very much.
Because as happens with government programs, reporting requirements have gotten a little more expensive over time.
Yes, and we have had some trouble this last year with one particular hospital that did not want to pay their portion, but they eventually did. We had to impose some penalties, but that was.
Okay. Well, we know y'all are on top of it. Do we have any public comment on this item? Okay. No action taken on that one, so we'll move to number 2, which is consider and take action to approve resolution setting the fiscal year 2023 mandatory payment rate for the Wichita County Healthcare Provider Participation Program.
I'll make that motion.
Restate that rate.
4.37.
It's 4.63%.
63.
Yes.
I'll second that rate.
Okay, do we have any questions on that? Any public comment? All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Watts to approve the resolution setting the fiscal year 2023 mandatory payment rate for 4.63% for the Wichita County Healthcare Provider Participation Program, seconded by Commissioner Beecham. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, item number 3. Review and approve the regular bills for payment. Order county treasurer to disperse payroll and bill payments within 72 hours via U.S. mail, FedEx, UPS, or electronically unless directed otherwise, or may be picked up and ledgered in the treasurer's office.
Second.
All right, do we have any questions? Any public comment? I have a motion by Commissioner Fincannon, seconded by Commissioner Beecham to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item number 4, discuss, consider, and/or take action to approve the proposed Wichita County subdivision regulations with periodic revisions. Commissioner Watts?
Yes, we had discussed this roughly last, I'll give, pass those.
I believe that's correct.
And this is the process, basically, that this is an overview of the process, I should say, that we want to move towards. It's just a restatement of some of the aspects of what's needed in the application, but there's a simple application on the back. So that's where we're moving very quickly. Once Kerry Maroney would give his blessing on an application, which will be somewhat similar to this right here. And we wanted to just make certain that we reclarified or restated that revision 1 of the subdivision ordinance or order from the court is in play, and we would have to basically walk a person through with Carrie for the process in the immediate, just in the next, but it just within a few weeks will bring you a revision to the subdivision.
So my understanding that we're going to follow Hayes County's template?
No, we're
Oh,
just
this is
going,
just
that's
for
just the
informational.
application, just to see that there's a second portion. This is
Okay.
the second portion that has a kind of the application in the back and how they present theirs. And this is something that is available from their website. And Bryn, we may want to move there with the subdivision once we have it completely where we'd like it to be with application. Because you can either choose to read the rules, or you can click to print the application, or you can, I noticed most of them was like that.
Yeah, there was a, oh, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, we're just wanting to go ahead and basically approve the subdivision like we had approved it so far.
Yeah,
We're still working on the whole application part of it.
sure,
Because as of right now, we don't have an application process on hand.
yeah.
So
We're just pass this out as informational on how we can go about doing it. That's,
Yeah.
okay, that's pretty
And
much what
I
my
have
question is.
others, if y'all are interested, that they're basically all very similar to this. As far as the written version of the application portion goes, they're very similar in nature. Seems like everybody's basically getting all that. Now, Carrie may cut some of that down. There may not be the need for quite the volume, but most of those counties address it with their own people. They even have that permit process to be, we ultimately would approve the plating, but it would be after Carrie's recommendation to us. And some counties don't do that because they're either 911 coordinator like Lee does our flood plan stuff, or a task with it, but we just thought since it was periodic and it is something that probably in the future is going to be dealt with more, we just would rather have a sub-party or a third party that's administering someone that's very familiar with subdivisions, which is Biggs and Matthews.
We may reach out to Cook County. They recently stood up a subdivision coordinator within their county family, so.
But as of now, this will be an application to the court, correct?
That's correct. But before it comes to us, it will flow through Carrie. So we'll take application, we'll give it to Carrie. Carrie will say, hey, he's worked out the deals here and thinks they've got a viable preliminary plan.
they'll come back to the court for you.
At first glance, there's, in the application itself, there's a bunch of these that don't apply currently.
No.
But they will come online as we develop that
That's
program that we've already worked on, and there's still some work to do on it.
Well, we'll also, again, be watching down in Austin, because there's a number of bills affecting
Yeah.
county subdivision ordinances. that are-
And some of them are based on, Jim told me this, that there is now a time limit of sorts that really put us under the gun to not table or shelf it, but to act on it immediately. And so we're going to have to watch that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and automatic, it's considered approved unless action's taken on it within a certain amount of time. It's pretty quick too, I think 10 days or so.
You mean that the application is submitted to?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that
Right.
wild?
So we'll be watching that. So do we have a motion?
Is the question today to approve what the order as we have it written currently?
Yeah, there was
Yes.
some question over when the court took action back on December 27th. Was it approving the subdivision regulations or a process
Move
for?
forward.
Yeah, this is just
And so this
cleaning
would
that up.
clarify that
Okay.
adopting the
Yeah.
regulations.
We are adopting the order with the intent to continue to revise it.
Finalize the
And
application.
these have, through section 6, or mostly our recommendations. When it became, we began to worry on some of the road criteria and easement widths and things, and then we let Carrie take it he gave us his suggestions through the whole document. We're putting those into play. So revision 1 contains what we've added or corrected, plus what Carrie added and corrected, and then we can continue to move forward from there. Because I don't know that we have a glorified mobile home portion of this. I don't know that we address RV parks thoroughly here, so
Which is
all of
a question
those.
that we need to answer.
Will we eventually roll our culvert restrictions into that plan? Is that?
And as they occur in a subdivision, they would be buried, but I think we could go ahead and, while
Probably
we're
needs to
doing
be
it,
addressed
get
in
it.
general.
Yeah, it's a separate order, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a separate one.
Yeah, it's,
But I mean, I think at some point we might want to roll them into that set of
Yes.
criteria. and
Same
regulations.
criteria.
Yeah, it'd just be a separate
Yeah,
deal.
just to get us uniformed and,
But really, there's no need in getting too specific on this till we see what the legislature's gonna do, I would assume. And what rules we're operating under.
and this came up last Thursday on the flood planning board. There were some culvert issues that they alluded to the fact that they were flooding issues. It looked like to me, and this court would act on it our own selves. Each precinct would never let that occur. And I thought that that's how those things should be addressed. But it does, by setting those out, it not only conforms for the citizen to know what to do for culvert and placement, subdivision, how they're going to be required to handle that, but also what we're required to do when we find fault, that we need to get that changed out.
so it brings up a question, do we write it as a subdivision and right-of-way use or order? That way we encapsulate all of it together in one place,
Good.
so we're not pointing people in multiple.
Yeah, we
Seems
could.
like a good way to simplify
We can
it.
make that addition
Any use
into
of
it.
right-of-way, whether it's drainage.
Yeah, well, and
culverts.
Mickey's got the road cutting application
Yeah.
deal, and it could tuck into the back in a section of its own, just like the culverts could be a section of its own.
But there's
Part
utilities.
underneath, yeah, utilities.
See, I've got a place in my precinct and I get calls every year. It was an old subdivision that was planned, never platted, never developed, and there were some property sold. And what's happening is, nothing ever came of it, it was never developed, but as we have a generational change, people are going through safety deposit boxes and finding a deed for that property.
You bet.
And then they call and want to know, what's this about, and where is it, and when are the roads going to be built? And that's why this is probably going to be more important moving forward. We're going to see more and more of that. Because the real increase in the population of Wichita County is in the rural areas. Yeah, I mean, it's not in the city limits of Wichita Falls, which I think the last census showed us that, but we've got a lot of activity out in the country, and we really need to at least have some way to set some boundaries and know what the procedure is.
Right.
Because we'll have people calling, well, what do you do in this case? Well, I don't know, and so I think we got a lot of work to do on the one that we worked on back in December, but at least it's a start.
Yeah.
And,
But it could be a place to house all that type of stuff and
Yeah,
that make it
just make
easier.
it, yeah, subdivision and right-of-way usage.
Yeah.
However we want to call it.
Right.
So.
good idea.
Because I'm amazed that I have one in precinct 4 that's headed that direction, but I'm amazed at how the elevation change and the flood element of the whole aspect comes into play. I mean, it's staggering how much that is a topographical change to the
And every
land.
time you build buildings or pave areas, you change the flood
Yeah.
profile.
That's why the city has such an elaborate staff to deal with that.
That's right.
So I'd make the motion, Judge, that we confirm the fact that subdivision ordinance is in place as written, and then we move forward to bring back to the court a application to approve as well.
Without developing an elaborate staff. That's the most important part.
Well, I have an elaborate staff to help, Nancy and Debbie.
That's right. We have our elaborate staff in place.
Let me make sure that I got the motion correct, Commissioner Watts. It's to confirm that the Wichita County subdivision regulations are adopted and in place, and at a later time to bring back an application for court to approve. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
And I'll try to get that accomplished in just the next 2 weeks.
Right. And the version, so court in December would have adopted version 0.
Yeah.
So are we adopting a different version? We're adopting the revised?
We actually are, we had not received Carrie's comments at that point, the engineer. So we are, we could call this revision 2, because we adopted one.
And he added to it, or I guess some understanding.
Would you be okay if we amended your motion to just adopt this revision, this version of it as the one in place?
Sure.
Okay.
And it will probably be revised.
Yeah, and I was amazed as Kerry gave me multiple examples of different deals that off the top of his head, without looking at anything, he could tell me about anomalies with different divisions just because he's got a lifetime in the development of those. So I was, that's amazing to me that.
All right. Do we have any questions? Do we have any public comment on this item? All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Watts and seconded by Commissioner Fincannon to adopt the revised version of the Wichita County subdivision regulations and bring back an application at a later time to Commissioner's Court to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. This time, move to item number 5, which is to receive an overview of property insurance from Commissioner Watts.
So everybody's going to have to put their glasses on.
You mean another set?
Yeah. And this is just some reference here for that sheet, so get one and pass it on.
Well, that's smaller than the
2 pages. I just tried to cram it in there.
So we need
didn't have
2 of
9 pages.
these?
Just one.
Just one,
Yeah.
okay. My goodness, Jeff. Cheryl may
Well,
have to
and
hold
I'm-
this for me so I know that I can see it from here.
I'm excited that Ernesto and Brett's here to facilitate this, and they can certainly field some questions because, gosh, it's been a deep well, and Nancy and Debbie and myself have worked on spotting things. Let me give you an overview. So our property is covered by, you'll have to have your glasses, Cheryl, for sure. Is covered based on a replacement cost, okay? And so the replacement cost, just as an overview, last year from 2022, 2023, tax says, hey, Wichita County, you have $200 million worth of property to rebuild if it all washed away tomorrow. And so that's what we were insuring ourselves for, and that cost is just slightly over $250,000, actually $252,000 to be exact. And so we pay a little bit more because at the time on this policy, our mobile equipment, there were a few items of mobile equipment there, as well as a schedule for some other coverages, very minimal, but it was about $257,000 we paid for this property, or what they identify as property insurance coverage. So if you'll look, everybody's broke out. There is a site and building for each property as they have it listed. So for example, mid-page, you can see the light gray area on the front page is the Law Enforcement Center. And it is also the old jail, as well as the Vernon College as tenants building, and the new LEC. And then in the center column there, where I tried to box that in, you can see last year how much we were insured for in those buildings that make up that one column of color, and what that premium was for that year for just those things. I set it out differently. And then just using the math on this number and using, knowing that Ernesto's group has calculators built in play, so Ernesto's group or their third-party asset management team does not come each year and upgrade us, but there are factors that formulate into the cost of doing business through the COVID and supply chain issues and all of those things. They initiate a factor involved that raises our costs. And so we did receive from them new valuations going into July is when this property will renew. And so they have identified all of our properties and then applied the factor to them. So what it cost us to build last year is going to be increased this year, and we have moved up to $231,836,000. So we have had an increase in replacement cost of that much money, and you can kind of look and see, just to get an idea, if you look at the annex, the annex is not good, but what's called the museum, it gives you an idea of per $10 million cost, basically. But I just did the math on how 252,000 applies to 200 million and backed into my amount. Our new coverage estimate is more than likely going to be just over $290,000. So we're going to see a substantial increase because the replacement costs have went up. Now, as you can see in the last column in the 2000, before I moved into tabulating the total amount insured and the premiums for each set of buildings, you can see the premium costs on some of those things are extremely small. And Ernesto, I wanted to tell you, and I told Bianca and Lucia, we cheated y'all out of $3 last year. So there goes your award back. But I double checked my numbers, and we were just not picking up a $3 a premium there. We didn't get charged for it. So, but outside of that, to eliminate some small items, which we generally would think of, well, we can cut this, but we can factor this thing into about 3 or 4 large ticket items that carry all this cost. And, I don't know that the Precinct 4 building, which is listed as Site 11, all of these small charges, premium charges of $12, $20, $100, I don't know that for that kind of money I wouldn't want to insure it if a tornado took me completely out of play. And so even though if one was destroyed, my deductible is $75,000, so I wouldn't necessarily want get anything for blowing one away, but I would only capitalize on blowing them all away.
is the deductible, this may be to you or it may be to them, is the deductible for an event or for a calendar year?
For an event.
Okay.
And an event can be countywide or one location.
Now, I did have that question,
We had that
Ernesto.
problem before, that we had hail all over the county, and it covered, that 175,000 covered all
Correct.
of
Okay.
it. So that's,
I just wanted to reaffirm that.
yeah.
Jeff, like on line 5 there, you're listing that as a museum, but that's that entire building.
That is that entire building, and we do need to correct, and Nancy and Debbie know, we want to change some of that wording. And for example, we know that as the Linderman Building is what we know it as and how we acquired it. And I wanted to make sure on that very, very same thing, we are carrying $2 million worth of interior stuff. And do we have that? I mean, if all the records blowed away tomorrow because the building got sent down the block and the records sucked up and blowed away, we can't
You
replace
can't
it.
replace them.
So what, other than that, what's in there?
Well, are we responsible for the museums?
No, they're tenants of ours.
They should have.
Their own renter's
their own
insurance.
Well, that's a good question, because you can't go to Walmart and buy them, I mean.
We have the
Or do you
archives,
do?
which is replaceable as well, so.
Yeah, you can't replace it. No reason.
So some of those, I wanted y'all to scrutinize some of these things that you might think that are a little bit on the edge there. It's just also look over and see the premium we're paying, because in a lot of instances on these lower valued structures, they're just very insignificant amounts. Now, $2 million contents does add to the equation, but outside of that, it doesn't. But Ernesto, y'all would get to the bottom of, here's another something that I stumbled on when I saw how we were covered, and then I checked it and realized our two buildings out on the Central Expressway have the same address. Does that cause TAC any trouble at all, really? I mean,
I don't think so. I don't know, when we send someone out, if there's damages, they just wouldn't know which one, but that's easy to overcome.
okay. It's nothing that we need to be concerned with we can figure it out then.
Correct. And the provisions of the agreement, such as the deductible amount, for example, are those blanket uniform? TAC has one policy, it's deductible across, that's a negotiated
That is
amount.
a deductible that the county elects, in which your deductible impacts your contribution.
Sure.
Like anything else, if you have a higher retention, that impacts your total contribution versus somebody who has a lower deductible and might end up paying additional contribution.
Do people have $250,000 deductibles? I mean, is that just as an example? There are counties that would choose that?
Some have higher, most of them have lower.
Do we refer to this contribution rather than premium because it's an organization, an association? So that changes the terminology. I was just curious about that.
It's a
So
great
our total
observation.
deal is a couple $100,000.
So, you brought up the museum. The museum's independent of Wichita County, but we have the archives and records. Is that normal to insure those things which cannot be replaced?
Think about what you just had happen here at the courthouse.
Yeah,
They
Well-
get wet and they have to be freeze dried. That process is expensive.
okay.
It's not a tornado blowing
Yeah.
away, it's water
It's-
damage, something that could potentially be replaced.
So, like Wise County, 2 weeks ago, they lost their Wise County Museum,
Yes, sir.
historical museum, so they lost it on fire, so those things are not replaceable, but
But you still recover the loss.
still recover
Which
the
can
loss,
help you
rebuild something back in its place. Okay.
You probably do want to double check your lease agreement, just make sure that the county isn't responsible to insure their contents. Because sometimes if it's considered in your care, custody, and control, that lease may require it.
And, you know, that's a very good point, Brett, because we have tenants at Vernon College and they could easily start a fire that, would be detrimental to that whole building, and that really should be on their insurance. And I don't know that we actually receive, Nancy, do we annually a policy on their behalf, a renewed policy like you would keep policy at the bank on your
When
home?
we had the water release there 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that was all on our insurance, so.
It was all building, I think it was just the building that was damaged, I don't think they had any contents that were damaged in that.
And I could see where an agreement between like a nonprofit might be different than leasing a building out to, you know, a commercial business. That probably is, those are probably questions we need to ask as to what our agreement is.
And Ernesto, how do we, is there any documentation that lets us review what our contents, how it actually arrived at that number?
No, usually that figure is provided by the county.
And is it a number based off of sometimes the value of the property as whole?
It could be the occupancy, whatever they have stored in that building, whether it's office, whether it's records, whether it's a equipment storage or things of that nature, that will determine the value, the content value.
Okay, and as they list on our sheet, most buildings have a number. So site one, we have 3 entities here at the courthouse. One is the building itself. The second one listed as 002 is the little pavilion outside here. It doesn't carry much value with it. And the third site, always listed as 999 on every site location, is the
Site improvements.
site improvements, and that is your blue sheet. So you can look on that blue sheet and see every site, and the site improvement, there is the notes that came from TAC on those coverages. And so you can kind of see, and according to Lucia, is that occurred last for us in 2015. And then we have received the 4-year program. Our last 4-year reassessment was in 2021, and we are rescheduled for 2025. And since it's been 10 years, we'll get a comprehensive review of everything in 2025 then.
So when they came down, they value everything over $250,000. And they provided a report to the county with the new values. And you're correct, some of the values were in fact impacted because of the cost of construction materials. That has a great deal in the value of the building. I think moving forward, we're gonna be trending those values that are below $250,000. We're gonna trend those, so those values will be more representative for you guys in the future.
And then if you'll look on the highlighted yellow on the second page, you'll see that site 15 and 16 at the top of the yellow were our only 2 communication towers that were carried on insurance, and for a nominal amount at the time. The Bell Tower had equipment coverage of $54,000, and the Electra Tower that we leased had $28,000 on it. And so the Lee said that he was submitting, and I understand now why they weren't necessarily being applied, but I think that Willie maybe thought that they would come and reassess. That just wasn't occurring because it was under $250,000. But he says now, if you'll look to the far right, those are the values, not including Brendan's value which is not astronomical. They're nowhere compared to this, but it easily will add $50,000 to each one of these. So he has some equipment as well as the county's emergency management. This is the value of the equipment located at these towers that were not listed.
So, Jeff, the new
Yes.
amount includes all of those towers now, which
Correct.
previously were not?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked up that total value, which is some of those. There's just briefly, at least probably crowding $3 million there.
Yeah.
But what also is not included, and we wanted to stick those in here, is, Ernesto, we have multiple locations. Now, the towers are covered because those towers carry the generators, but the courthouse here, we carry 3 generators, and we're not listing them on site improvements. And I think we should, by all rights, don't you, put those, because we're probably talking $200,000 worth of generators here at the courthouse.
I don't know if those are considered as part of the building or site improvements. 'Cause they may be, if they're attached to the building, they may be catching them
Well,
there.
Lucia explained to me if they set alone on their own pad, which ours do, we have no generator really on the foundation of a building. They set apart on their own pad, and she said those would need to be listed as site improvements. Now, she didn't say maybe way back they were picked up and carried that way and why I'm not seeing them, but she said going forward we need to list them.
And that's part of the renewal process, is to review the schedule and add those things. Right now will be the time to do that.
Okay.
So with HVAC chillers and transformers, and would that be subject to the same rule as?
They're part of the building.
Even though they're on a separate pad?
The big one.
Well, they're mandatory, marked just like door. They're kind of mandatory to the building where our generators are elected. We couldn't elect not to have the air conditioning.
Sure we could.
Well, if we change all the windows out, maybe, but.
I mean, I don't understand why the distinction, what?
Because it's a backup generator.
Yeah, well, in the case of the jail, we're required to have that. It's a requirement, we can't opt out of. So is the big train boxcar generator that we have out at the jail, is it separate from the building?
No, it's not listed as a site improvement. It hasn't been added.
That's the big one.
Think of.
And we've got a big one here too.
Site improvements, so that's like your lights out here.
Yeah, I get that.
Lights, so that a backup generator that's on a separate pad would kind of fall into that same definition, where the HVAC and permanently attached equipment to maintain the building are generally considered just part of the building.
That's the way Lucia had explained it to me. And look too, what's interesting, I thought, if you'll look on the very top line under the courthouse on site 1, there is a reproduction cost, and it's only listed for the courthouse, but that value is in the event we had a historical designation. So we would move from a $50,000, we carry about $9 million in contents here at the courthouse, and a $50,000 replacement of the building. But if it was historically valued, it would be $150 million. Quite a difference in that. And
as we go forward and consider what's at that threshold, whether it makes sense to cover it as a deductible or whatnot, county, I want to go back to the definition of an event. Heavy rainfall over a week floods multiple locations across the county, but over 4 different days. Is that one event?
It could be, or it could be multiple events. You just have to see where the storm came from. Did the storm linger, or was it a different cell? Usually,
So 5 different storm systems over the course of a week lead to one big flooding event. That's 5 different events.
It'd likely be very difficult to separate those, would probably fall under one.
NBC says that's an atmospheric river.
Atmospheric river.
That's right.
Well, generally, when you have a big outbreak like that, they're categorized together as one outbreak.
Yeah, it would just be a case-by-case basis. There's not a set rule for that.
So
say like, for example, one day you had a bad hailstorm, the next day you had a bad rainstorm. 2 different events like.
Okay, so what happens if a tornado comes out of Seymour, Texas, and catches the half of the county, but another one's developed from Vernon and runs a different pattern and catches more? Are those 2 events?
If it's the same storm, the same cell, 1 event.
But that's going to be 2 separate.
You charge that first one to Baylor County.
Well, there were some actual instances over the weekend where
Yeah.
communities were double hit. So
Yeah.
not the same cell, but the same storm system.
Same storm system, sorry for
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be one deductible on that if
Yeah.
2 tornadoes popped up in the same storm, which happens, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
how
you know,
lots pop
you
up.
can actually have that happen. You have a tornado take somebody's roof off, then you have a major rain event so many hours later or the next day, and it just compounds
Yeah.
the problem.
The secondary damages a lot of times are just as bad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's irrelevant to this question because whether or not we cover something that's underneath that deductible threshold matters if it's most likely going to. These towers, you could have 2 of them go down in one event or 2 separate events. So.
Yeah, one of those gets hit, it's a total loss, most likely.
So we had, obviously, this, we had one large hailstorm come through here, and then one hailstorm for 800,000.
Okay. Any other?
If our roof is gone and there's a major rain coming, I expect Ernesto to be here with a tar.
We have plenty in the 4th floor, so save them.
Ernesto, could you run us, let's say, if I ask the Commissioners Court to approve us up to $240 million, we wouldn't break that much value. But if we could approve up to 240, could you run us some scenarios with larger deductibles and see how those premiums compare?
I can ask them to look into it. Now, I might say, right now, the property market is, like you saw in the conference, is very unstable. We anticipate another 15-20% increase across the state as a result. But I can definitely ask underwriting to consider higher deductibles to see what would that do to your contribution. Absolutely.
Question, are y'all very familiar with other counties' deductibles, what most of them run?
Yes.
Typically, comparable counties our size, what kind of deductibles do they run?
Well, this upcoming year, it's gonna be slightly different, Commissioner. Some of the counties, a lot of the counties in my part of the state have lower deductibles. They're smaller counties. They don't have as much property as you guys do. However, the board approved a wind and hail deductible that's coming into place with this upcoming renewal, where in the past, smaller counties had a $5,000, $10,000 deductible. If they have a severe convective storm happen, which may include if you have winds in excess of 58 miles, or if you have 50 miles per hour, or if you have hail in excess of 1 inch, or if you have a tornado in the area, those counties that had a $5,000 or $10,000 deductible, their minimum deductible is gonna jump up to $25,000 automatically. For you guys that have the $75,000 deductible, you're not gonna be impacted by that because you already have a higher deductible. But a lot of the smaller counties in this part of the state, what I've been talking to them is to be prepared to have that money set aside in the event that a storm was to happen. And the weather's been so unpredictable, so I'm highly recommending to the smaller counties to have that money aside in case that happened. But this is the very first year the pool has actually adopted a wind and hail deductible. And all this is a result of the property market. It's so unstable that reinsurance, Lloyd's of London has really have a big issue with the small deductible. And
So Ernesto reported at the school that we attended that on average for many years, we saw a 6% on average increase as replacement costs. And then all of a sudden you got to this troubled times and we just kept going, you know, and lots of things come into play, COVID and supply chain and all of those that affected, and the cost of inflation and all of that impacted us. And so I can certainly see that it drives it.
You know, Nestor, your point's well taken. I serve on the board of an organization that has ties to insurance, and this market's nuts. I mean, it's all over the map, and everybody's having a hard time pinning it to something stable. This feels, I don't know that we've ever seen it like this before. Building costs and all the things that you talked about, and it's gonna be a real interesting ride over the next year or so till this thing settles down some. You have a big major event, you bring a major set of thunderstorms to the Metroplex, and you change the whole dynamics as far as the loss ratios and all that. And here we go again. It's nuts out there.
Well, Medina County down in South Texas, south of San Antonio, was it 2 years ago? They had a 6-inch hail.
Yeah, that'll tighten your clutch now, 6-inch hail.
That'll leave a mark, to say the least.
It will.
But to make sure, you would like for me to reach out to underwriting and quote a different deductibles higher than 75,000.
Yes, maybe stagger it there and let us, I mean, even
Worth for
to,
consideration.
yeah, and even up to $500,000, I would say, Ernesto, 250 and half, I mean,
We have some counties with very high deductibles for friends.
What would be the, I can't even see why would you would wanna have a $500,000. Because if $500,000 would almost, I could wipe out the whole precinct to all the buildings and not build them back.
But it's fine if you build an account to cover that.
It depends on what kind of.
You gotta do that, but that's difficult to do in this.
And that's why you want the numbers to see, because if they cut your.
well,
if
right
they
now-
What is our premium running year right now?
$250,000. And it's going to $300,000. So that just gives you, by the time we put the new mobile equipment that tucks in on this policy, it will be in excess of.
So if you slip by with 2 years, you could fund that account.
That's-
Yeah, but also in the same sense, Steve and Cheryl have a insurance account that we self-insured ourselves on and at one point in time paid to, that is setting about $2.9 million last account of that I saw, somewhere in that neighborhood of that kind of money under the insurance, and that we don't have a designated use for.
Do we currently
No.
put money in there?
Yes, some of it is fees and fees from different cases go into that reserve for self-insurance, because the district clerk and the county clerk are not bonded, they are self-insured. So any lawsuit that may come to either one of those officials will have to be paid out of that fund. Currently.
And that's a choice that those elected officials have made.
So yes, it is by statute. So originally it was set up that way because it was too costly to buy a bond. So we could do that. Now that we can buy a bond, we can choose to bond them. But currently we are self-insured still on those two offices. The rest of us are all bonded, so.
So, let's say, and Mel, you may have to help me here, but let's say that there is issue brought and what we're setting on, each clerk had $100,000 and we're getting sued for $1 million. Can it exceed that limit? I guess it could.
It could.
Yeah.
Yes, because they don't have a bond. Mm-hmm.
But if they had a bond and it was for only $100,000, like,
I thought there was some statute on suing the county and municipalities. Thought it was
There's a Texas tort claims
Yes.
law, but that doesn't always, that depends on what you're dealing with here. If we have like a civil rights violation, something like that, that's not gonna be
Correct.
under the tort claims.
it can jump that on up,
Yes.
that issue of
Yeah.
insurance up.
Yeah, there may be a magic crossover number, similar to what we do with medical insurance.
Yeah.
that We
Good point.
found.
Yeah, it may
raising
not
the
be.
deductible and us banking the
Right.
difference.
Which is something
But
we
we
need
don't
to
know that we see
reevaluate
it.
this year, because we're past that threshold
Yeah.
where we were attempting to save, so. But that's a different, that's
Yeah,
not on
but-
this item, so we can't discuss it.
No, but that would be similar, looking at the higher deductible.
Yes, trying to find a
$500,000
break
is scary,
even
you know?
point essentially. And I think $500,000 would be excessive.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to have the numbers, right? First
We look at it and
Look
see
at the number.
place, but in any form there under Ernesto that makes it easier, you know, whatever stage
It's pretty hard
or.
to set a deductible for when you're insuring everything is under one policy, you have a $50 million item insured along with a $50,000 item, and you're trying to set deductibles.
Yeah.
That's pretty tricky to do in itself.
Well, but what we're basically insuring ourselves for is that total loss. I mean, I'm experienced that, you know, we have a roughly $65,000 to $70,000 worth of damage at precinct 4, and I got no insurance money. I got some roof money when the roof was a problem collectively, but for any remodel that we did, it was not. So.
Well, you've got to find a way of ultimately to fund a self-insured account, and that's extremely difficult to do right now, but at some point, somewhere down the line, you might be able to. That's what, I mean, to me, that's what you got to do.
We just have to look and see how it affects the premium. If there's money there, we know we've been laying out $250,000, so
We've got to be able to perform our duties, so
But-
therefore we've got to have the position.
But if we stay-
We would have to bank the savings and hold it in
Mhm.
escrow, so to
Yeah.
speak.
But,
That's correct.
but just bear in mind, if we don't get off this trajectory that we're on, we soon can't buy insurance, because it is going to process over the,
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a 20% year-over-year increase in contribution.
and we hope and pray that that subsides and goes away, but this is, now that we pulled the vehicles into this, and what I'm talking about is only this property insurance and the consideration of mobile equipment that will add to and make that to be, because they quoted us about $12,000 on top of this property number you're seeing, that will be our mobile equipment number more than likely. And so we have pulled some things from mobile equipment that didn't make sense, and everybody gave up some older stuff or things that we were willing to forego, and just covered the necessary essentials. But we know that that's going to continue as well as automobile insurance coverage and such. So
I don't foresee the state legislature in opening the door for 20% increases in the way we do business. So it's going to eventually eat you, somewhere down the
Yeah.
line.
All right, do we have any other questions? Any public comment? Okay, let's move to item number 6, receive update on courthouse renovation, elevator projects, and county courthouse annex. Commissioner Beecham.
Boy, we didn't have
What has
anything
happened
happen
last
last week. Last week was so nice and quiet. We'll start with the elevators. So that's where the first disaster occurred last week. So TK Elevator was on site Tuesday morning. They were supposed to complete car number 2, the remodel car. They showed up with the wrong materials and or wrong drawings. And they were supposed to have completed that work by Friday, close of business Friday. It has not been completed. I was on the phone with them this morning. They're supposed to be back Wednesday with the appropriate material and or design paperwork. It remains to be seen. They're supposed to communicate with me, but they never did.
Double check.
Yes, yes. So that elevator has to be completed before anything else. Once it's completed, the other one's pretty much ready to go. Then we get just the finish out work and inspection. So we're not that far off. It's just getting some cooperation from them. Cooperation and TK elevator are two words that don't go well together. Then we had, immediately after that discussion with TK elevator, we had our water release. So in working on the remodel, a plumber was up on the 4th floor, cut through a water line and released thousands of gallons of water that made its way down and onto the 3rd floor first, concentrating mostly in the 30th District Court. 30th District Court is basically an entire loss. So the courtroom and offices and the adjacent rooms to the 30th being the lawyer's lounge and court administration office also received heavy damage. We have asbestos tile throughout most of the area that will have to be abated. We have 2 areas of asbestos drywall that they should be working on to abate right now before anything else can be done. We're still in the process of drying. In talking to the abatement folks this morning, the wall between Judge McKnight's office and Judge McKnight's courtroom is still 100% saturated. So it's a slow process. Damage is heavy, and again, that's not going to go away anytime soon. The water then made its way down into the county clerk's area, damaging drywall, ceiling tiles, and unfortunately, every bit of the county's permanent record that was held in document form was inundated with water. Most of it was saved, the complete deluge, by quick work by county staff from every office within the courthouse. It looked like an anthill. I mean, people from all over the courthouse just rushed in and with trash cans, buckets, plastic, everything imaginable to preserve those documents. But they still got wet, they got damp. So it was determined that every one of the documents needed to be collected and sent off to a cryogenics facility, which will cryogenically dry those documents. They were all removed from the building this weekend. They're on their way to a facility in Michigan to be restored. Documents were collected in such a manner that if we need access to them, they can pull what documents we need and send us an electronic copy. So we still have access to them, even though they're not on site. I don't know a timeline on getting them back, but they are gone. That was first order business to get those out of here. It also affected the elections office, elections equipment where it was being programmed for the public test, which did occur last week. Quick action on the county clerk's part to get all that equipment out of there quickly, saving us a lot. So they got it on carts, got it moved down to the grand jury room very quickly before the ceiling came down in the election room. Discovered that there was a container, I guess, catching drip water or something up in the elections office room that had filled up quickly, and it came crashing down just moments after they got everything out. So that was probably 4 or 5 gallons that dropped instantly. So that's the state of where we are on what occurred last week. Moving forward, we had a very productive meeting all day Thursday on some plans moving forward. What it looks like is our Our best plan forward is to, with some help from the city of Wichita Falls, we met with them Thursday morning as well. City of Wichita Falls is going to allow us to go ahead and occupy the remodeled space on one with the district clerk's office and the HR office. We will be moving them down beginning week from Friday. So the following week, we should have that district clerk's office completely empty and the HR office completely empty. I've offered that the current HR office to the 30th district as a place to land for a short period of time.
The offices.
The offices, not the courtroom. No, the courtroom's a little bit longer out. We are drawing plans currently for a temporary courtroom in the district clerk's area. I had already planned a temporary courtroom for that area. This will look completely different from what that original, already approved by Commissioner's Court plan was. So we should have that quickly this week and move forward with that. We believe we can have that up and operational in 6 weeks from getting it emptied out. So that's a fast track job to get that up and functional. So get the 30th District Court back operational is number one priority. Other priorities after that would be to get Anielle's office up and operational. She has asbestos abatement to take place in her area. I think I can get that done on very short order, and that would be limited to floor tile, painting the walls. There's some plaster work. Some of the plaster's popped off the wall because it got water in behind it. So, but it's quick work. I think I can get them back in fairly quick. They're literally living in a closet across the hall from where they were, so not a good situation at all. They have a 3-person staff working out of a closet. But that's where they want to be, and that's where they are. Probate auditor's been moved to the 4th floor in one of the vacant offices. It's not real accessible, but so a lot of people moving around. Abatement was scheduled to begin at the annex this morning. I think we pulled at least some of the abatement crew over to the courthouse to remove drywall so we can get that dried out quicker. So they were setting up containment fields this morning in the courthouse. Now, I don't know what the status is of the abatement of the annex. I haven't asked. That's the least of my concerns right now, but that was scheduled to begin this morning. Beyond that, not much happened last week.
And so right now, you've introduced him earlier, the gentleman, Mr. Lynch, I think, is here to help TAC with the work they're doing on our behalf.
Yeah, Alan is collecting all the data. He's helping direct scope and guide scope because that's what he does. He's very familiar with these kind of incidences and dealing with the abatement folks. I thought we had done a really good job up to that point, and we did. But having him on board, he's been there, done that, and understands the step-by-step process that we need to be going through. So thank TAC for helping us get that established. A lot of things happen, like fire alarms. I didn't mention that. Our fire alarm panel was apparently damaged. We were put under a fire watch, and the notification didn't go to the right email address, so we didn't know about it till over the weekend. So we had to get a security company to come in over the weekend to perform the fire watch for us. So a lot of moving parts right now.
Do we have any questions? Okay, any public comment on that item? Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
I would like to just publicly acknowledge you've been putting in a lot of hours and taking in a lot of information and doing a lot of work on this, so thank you for taking it in.
Just one add real quick, I did fail to mention, we are insured, but this should be taken care of by builders' policies or the construction company's policies. We have had meetings with the insurance folks. We are having additional meetings this week. It's going to be a slow process to determine liability and where it all comes from, but the bottom line, this should all be covered under insurance one way or another.
Well, what brings into question liability, Mark?
Lawyers.
That's the question of the day.
Brett, you want to answer the question?
Yeah, so they'll be looking at stuff, like if, on the call they mentioned plans for the lines, and so they'll be looking at, should have those been shut off during the work to begin with, why weren't they, who's responsible for that? It's pretty obvious what happened, I mean, there's.
But I mean, even the
liability.
answers to all those questions are, it wasn't us, right? I mean, whether it lies with another contractor, but we had nothing to do with that, right?
Yes, they're trying to protect them, and they're fighting.
All insurance companies will fight whether it's their fault or.
Absolutely,
yeah.
All
That's their job.
that has yet to be determined was what was said in the meeting the other
Have they
day.
gotten back to us on when their
They're
person
supposed-
was coming?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yep.
We told them about business day Friday, they need to let us know when someone was coming.
Wednesday.
They do want a copy of the M&F Lettikenny contract.
Okay.
You did, I do.
And then maybe in this process as well, because this won't be our first rodeo, no doubt, but can we go ahead and plumb in quick disconnect at our masters? And I'm assuming maybe only one or two, but you know, I default, being a water guy and managing a water system, the first thing I do is go straight to the master and kill it. And could we, I don't know that we have the ability to do that today. Could we implement that?
Well, that
We
also
do
would
have-
require that person to communicate that he cut the water line.
Well, true, yeah.
Well,
But I mean, that is because we know we probably got a lot more valves that are in places we don't even know. And
once Rick was notified properly of what was going on, the water was turned off. I'll put it that way.
right, but I'm just saying a fail-safe go-to kill-all water cutoff.
Well, we've got several different water systems within the building. That's an issue because we've got a chill water, a steam system, a chill water system,
Well,
domestic hot water, domestic cold water system. So there's multiple
but
systems.
they
There's
could all be fed by 1 meter, though,
No.
right?
Well, not the steam system and chill water system. No. You got to
So
know
you
which
think we
you got to
have
know
more
which
than-
system you got to know which system you're working off of.
But
before
you
can-
think we have more than one master meter here?
Well, we got one master meter, but turning off the master meter would do nothing for the chill water, steam water,
Right.
steam plumbing.
But surely those valves are in place. So
They
that
are.
those systems that are holding water.
Yes, and they are. We are valved on both systems.
Any other questions? Do we have any public comments? All right, that brings us to our last item, which was consent agenda 11, which was pulled down. Motion to authorize payment of any invoices relating to the March 2023 courthouse flood be paid from general fund contingencies with reimbursements from insurance and/or subrogation.
Cheryl, how are you going to,
We're tracking everything through projects, just like we do anything, and then we will have to figure out if that's gonna be paid, tax gonna pay us and then we pay them, and then they'll subrogate out to the travelers, but that's all to be seen. But we're gonna have to pay our deductible. Some of these expenses are gonna have to get paid.
We are tracking everyone's time, which reminds me, and I didn't think about it before, but all department heads or officials who are not using time clock, I need you guys to figure out how much time you've spent on this, because that's a loss to the county in time that should be used on something else. So I would like us to track that in case we need it later. Backing into that much later is gonna be harder, so, clearly Annette was here all weekend, Mark's probably been here around the clock, so most of it's gonna be his time.
Mickey moved boxes
Mickey,
and threw tarps, and, yeah.
You know, that's time we don't think about.
Huh, yeah, I didn't know about that.
But there's still gonna be some things, these vendors are not gonna wanna wait. Legally, if there's a claim on for payment, we have 30 days to pay it. And while we're figuring out with TAC and travelers, I don't want us to get locked into not paying our bills and fulfilling our legal obligations, because it's.
Right, but what I was just wondering is there a way that we set up where every 2 weeks we review those?
Oh, yeah, well, I'll go
we-
through the bills anyway, I mean, so, yes.
But in their own category or mixed in general fund?
It'll be part of, it'll all pay out of contingencies out of 409, so it'll be pretty apparent what it is, but yes, we can set up something to, I mean, weekly you'll be looking at them anyway.
So, the second half of that question, so this weekend I had to approve Signal 88 to come in. We don't have an agenda item or anything to do that.
Correct.
We-
This is what this
This
item
is
is
the
for,
emergency. Yeah, this is
is
the-
to contain that,
deal
all
everything as
those
an emergency.
emergency items,
Yeah.
the deductible, service master, Signal 88 coming in, all of those things that normally you would need your approval prior to. This will take care of any of those emergency things as they pop up until they're fixed.
Okay. So everything needs to be notated as, as emergency response. And that
And
way,
the flood and.
we don't have to have an individual court order action.
That's what this is to do, because it's all gonna get reimbursed by one insurance company or another. It's just figuring out which one it's gonna be at this time.
But you think there's a way to define it so that they're easy to review and not scattered throughout alphabetically?
Yeah, they won't be, yeah.
Okay. That's what I wanted, so we could review what those were, how they were adding up, and then see, revenues associated with, because we necessarily wouldn't know if payments been made of any
Right.
sort.
Yeah,
And
that's why I don't do contra lines, and you'll see all that revenue.
And what is the process, Mel, for, let's say, tomorrow, the third-party insurance shows up and they want to settle? Does this court have to take action to settle?
We need to, I mean, I don't think we're ready for that. I mean, I don't think that's gonna be a problem, but no, we don't have to do that.
But does this court approve that payment?
An eventual settlement?
Yeah, let's say they show
Yeah.
up with a $5 million check tomorrow and say, we want to settle and be done, wash our hands, will you sign this that we've paid?
I think it would have to be through Commissioner's Court.
It would, but I think it's gonna also depend on whether or not we're dealing directly with travelers, or we use TAC, and TAC segregates out, so that changes that
But I think the answer to your question is,
policies, but yes.
nothing will happen without court action on that one way or the other. It'd have to come down to us.
I think that's ultimately the goal.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure that everything's done before.
Yeah,
And
just
we
to
want
see
bills,
if,
paying bills
Well, I don't.
without them going before the court.
I don't remember where I heard this, but I was kind of told not, we'll still be dealing with who's paying and the final payment about the same time we're finishing up with the construction, so.
If you're
Oh,
lucky.
in a year, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
16 months, something.
So
Yeah.
would that be an accurate assessment?
Yes, sir.
That We're early into this, we're still getting our feet wet.
and I guess we'll pull
Jokes for days.
on that, we'll pull a new project ID for the judge's courtroom and project number, and then start gathering the assessment of that cost. I mean, this is just cranks us up.
This cranks us up to at least cover the immediate things that happened last week, and then, yeah, Glenda will have to come with her drawings and the project, and probably sooner rather than later, so that they can start.
So we put this in the temporary courtroom on a different project number?
I would,
'Cause
so that we
they're
can track
both
it, because all of
related.
the expenses currently for this are directly related to the flood. Otherwise, we would not be doing this particular project.
Right
Yeah.
now, yeah.
And it's much
And it's
more
much
economically
larger.
feasible to move the 30th District Court into a place in our building
Correct.
than to go prepare some strip center
Correct.
as a courtroom and then have all the,
But the expense still of this particular temporary courtroom is gonna be more cumbering than what we were originally going to do. with
yeah,
the temporary,
and another
because
parse that out.
Judge McKnight needs a lot more space and has much more requirements.
Yeah, well, we know what that original approved value was. We'll parse that out. And
Right.
anything above and beyond,
Well, yes.
we'll go as direct flood-related expense,
Correct.
which is still gonna be far cheaper than moving them off-site and then having staff having to move back and forth between that off-site location and the
Well, and then,
courthouse
yes.
and setting up IT
Right.
situation
IT,
and
security, because security is really more important.
Yeah, and along those lines, meeting with the judges this morning, and I know we've already talked about this, just want to reiterate, let's keep Judge McKnight and Judge Kennedy involved on
Yeah.
the planning and making sure we get them what they
Absolutely.
need to do.
So, if we're, aside from the rehab cost of the damage, just going back with the upgraded facility to the extent of Aniel all the way across to Judge McKnight's courtroom and back in his offices, that estimated value, what is that going to be? I mean, what are we?
We're
We don't
too
know
soon.
yet.
We're 2 million, 4 million?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
All the
because
above.
here's what's gonna become real relevant. You go broke at $6 million. So, we have no more money than that. So if we're going to have to plan, we need to make sure that we have time to get us some money together up if we're gonna finance Judge McKnight's project differently than how we historically done it.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that what we hold money in reserve for situations like this?
We could.
Right, and
Yeah.
because this is an emergency, if we needed to do a emergency budget, this would qualify us to change our contingencies budget under the budgeting statutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
within.
We'll rely
But
on.
we shouldn't need that.
Right, we'll rely on
I'll be able to
between
manage that
treasurer and
pretty.
the auditor's office to let us know when we're
Yeah.
approaching that point.
But we
Hopefully we won't need to.
Sure, we should see insurance money
Yeah.
coming in to help. It really should end up being a wash in a pretty timely fashion, but this gets us moving in the right direction.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so moved, and thanks everybody for everybody's work on this. It's been a courthouse-wide effort. And annex-wide.
So Commissioner Beecham, just to clarify, is making a motion to authorize payment of any invoices relating to the March 2023 courthouse flood be paid from general fund contingency. And seconded by Commissioner Fincannon. Last chance, any public comment, questions? Okay. So the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And with that, it is 11:43.